Now let's just start with the main event, man. Like Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson, a fight that we thought we were gonna get 10 years ago. We finally got it. Right. And I don't know. I thought Ferguson looked all right. I thought Nate looked all right. I think those guys fought well. The finish was kind of weird. Let's talk about the finish, right? Was he rocked? Was Ferguson rocked?
No, I don't think he rocked. Like that's something that got told in his corner, right? I believe it was Eddie Bravo. I pretty much recognized his voice, and he just said, "If the shot's there, like take the shot." And maybe that's because they could kind of knew keeping track of the fight that he was down, right? He definitely lost two, if not three rounds going into that fourth round. So he definitely had to show like a different feather in his cap. But yeah, that's not the best move against Nate Diaz is to shoot on him, right? I feel like Tony was having a lot of success with that inside leg kick, and then with his right leg to the inside of Nate's lead leg, and then he kind of left it alone. He was getting like a good reaction from that in the first half of the third round, and to me, it like seemed he had kind of solved the puzzle and he'd figured a bit out, but he kind of left it alone after that and went back to his punching. And when he was punching or trying to hit Nate, he was like lunging too far into his punching and getting caught on the counter from Nate. So weird fight. I would say it was like a bit mess. It was a messy fight. There's no. I don't think there's any real denying that. I feel like Tony's like still adjusting to the weight. He obviously like he can take a pretty good shot, or he's always been able to take a pretty good shot and recover. He seemed like he was able to handle the shots, and he didn't seem like that was hurting him. He didn't seem like too hurt at any stage of the fight. But from to my opinion, he definitely slowed down. Like he's not as quick. Like we talk about how well he started that Chandler fight. Like that was he just got hit with like a Hail Mary shot. And I can understand the weight shift. Like four losses, he needs a fresh start in the new division. And welterweight is a division that he competed in the Ultimate Fighter. So he's fought in that. He's definitely can't make 45. Um, but yeah, he's still adjusting to the speed different. Like a lot of the stuff he used to be able to get away with due to his quickness and like natural agility. He can't really get out. Like a lot of the times he was turning his back or like spinning into shots, but it just looked like a bit slower than it usually did when he's far more agile at 55. So obviously he's still adjusting to the weight class, but yeah, it wasn't uh, it wasn't as good of a performance as his last performance. Although the result was obviously far different and far more terrible in the Chandler fight, I feel like his performance at 55 was like a lot better at that weight.
When you say it like that, and now that I think about how he was moving, he was a little bit slower because I expected him to have a little bit more. Like how people say if you go up a weight, you're gonna be more powerful. But a lot of people, like you just said, it's like your body has to get used to that weight. You've been at 155 or fighting at
Yeah,
155 against the best guys in the world for so long, and then now you got to go up 15 pounds. 15 pounds is an extreme difference, right? For a fighter, for anybody, you know what I mean? Like if you lose 15 pounds, people could tell instantly, right? And your energy could be lower. What it is, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But yeah, he did look a little bit different. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Where does Tony go from here though? Like, he's five in a row now. And people, of course people are gonna be like, he's a retire. Shut up with that. Like, people need to shut up about retiring and shit. Like, I hate when people are like, you need to retire. It's like, dude is fighting the best dudes in the world. Like, what do you fucking
yeah.
expect? You're gonna lose some and you're gonna win some, right? Like, I think people need to understand that a little bit better. But I think Tony, he's gonna get another fight at 170, and I think he's gonna get a good matchup. I think, what matchup that I like to see Tony in is him versus the Leech.
Yeah. No,
I
I,
think
I
that's
was
a good
just
fight.
thinking that I feel like that's still I feel like that's still a possibility, but like the leech fought really well. The leech is very fast, very powerful, very quick. Yeah, I would like to see Tony. If not, well, I would like to see him come back to 55. To mine, he looks better there, and he's got a lot of fun matchups. He can definitely move back to 55, and then maybe fight a Jim Miller, maybe fight a Clay Guida, maybe fight like these. I know there's like guys that he's competed with before, but these fights like make a lot of more sense than staying at welterweight and perhaps fighting like a young hungry killer. You know, I'd like to see him if he is going to stay at 170. I'd like him to fight. There's a lot of good matchups out there, just not like rush him into like Nate Diaz was handling him quite well, like won every round and finished him. And I'm not trying to like knock Nate or anything like that. Like he's a hell of a fighter, and I can understand, but he's not even like a ranked welterweight, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not. That's just the facts of the situation. So, unranked welterweight was able to handle welterweight Tony Ferguson quite easily. So, yeah, maybe like a fun matchup. Maybe a fun matchup at welterweight. The Leech or Tim Means or I'd feel like I'd like to see like a Tim Means matchup, like a guy that's unranked, had some losses, and it'll be a fun fight. I feel like Tony Ferguson still has a lot of fun fights left in him. Um, and he's obviously wants to keep fighting and wants to commit. And at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to is the person, and it's within themselves. And when they want to call it a day, it's not like anyone else's place to come in. Like you can look at Bigfoot Silver, like he's been knocked out. He's been knocked out like twice in the last couple of weeks, and he's fighting again next week. Like he just wants to fight. He wants to keep competing. And it's a hard one. It's a hard one it's a hard one for someone sitting on the outside to tell like a guy like Tony Ferguson, you need to stop fighting. Like he's still making a boatload of cash. I'm sure of it. He just headlined the pay-per-view. That's his last fight. The reality of his last fight is he just headlined a pay-per-view event for the UFC, and that's got to come with a paycheck.
You think he's getting a milli off that? You think he reached that level?
Yep. Yeah.
Damn,
I
that's beautiful.
don't think he wouldn't have got pay-per-view points. I feel like Nate Diaz was the one that was selling pay-per-views on that card. Yeah, undoubtedly Hamzat Chimaev is like a huge star in the future, but in terms of selling pay-per-views, I don't think he's quite there. He's quite there yet at the negotiation table, but without a doubt, I'm sure Nate Diaz is getting pay-per-view points. I don't feel like Tony Ferguson will get pay-per-view points, but I'm sure stepping up to the main event, his contract, he'll get a little letter. Let's just say that he'll get a little. He gets a little letter with a couple of extra zeros on it. I'm sure of it.
It'd be better just for them to carry suitcases out there, right? Just cash, so Tony could walk out the stadium with 2 briefcases. You know what I mean? They could take a picture of it. Like what is that? Like WWE, they have that like briefcase, Money in the Bank. I don't
Yeah,
really watch it, but
Money in
I'm
the Bank.
figuring, yeah,
We should
why
have
not?
Money in the Bank fights. Like there's like a wild card title fight.
Yeah, I saw that on
I know,
Twitter.
right?
Someone was suggesting like
Oh,
every event should have like a mystery fight. Like you don't know who's fighting until the event. Like you don't even know if they weighed in or anything. You just like,
I'm
yeah,
down.
you're at the
I'm
show.
down. I'm
That would be
down. I'm
crazy,
down.
right? Because imagine like there's a mystery fight and the first one to walk out is like Ronda Rousey, like that.
If you go, what?
You'd be like, what the fuck? Who the hell is she fighting, right? Like, like that would be crazy. I think that would put some excitement to it. That's some WWE level shit, but UFC will never do that. Come on, man. It's a sport. It's a sport, right?
It's a
It's a
sport. Allegedly.
allegedly.
It's
All right.
allegedly a sport.
Yeah. Let's before we talk more about Diaz, let's get this. Oh well, this is a question about Diaz, but actually it's to you. Mellow Man 001. Dan, just wanted to send some love from Canada. You're a legend. Hope you get paid millions. You folks deserve all the money for what you do. Question: what should Nate do next?
Um, yeah, he looks like he's going to boxing, right? Like that's the kind of hint, that's the breadcrumb he was laying out there. He looks like he's going to boxing in the next one. Obviously, um, like you can look at their performance. He's obviously not going to go and try and fight an elite level boxer, Canelo Alvarez or something like that. It's just impractical. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's a very good boxer for mixed martial arts, but being a very good boxer in mixed martial arts and then a purist specialist of that caliber, you can't compete. You can't compare the two skill sets. Um, it would be like Canelo trying to beat Nate in a jiu-jitsu tournament. Like that's how would compare the difference in skill level. So obviously, I feel like the Paul brothers, to some extent, um, would be a great matchup, or even potentially, I'm sure you could drag uh, Floyd Mayweather out for an exhibition at the top of a Dubai um, tower. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, of
that,
course.
and that's something that would interest a guy like Nate Diaz a lot more. Like obviously, he still wants to prove his skill set, and he's still like very confident in his skill set. So going like directly beelining for a Paul brother who's about to fight Anderson Silva, like that is a hard fight for him. So maybe potentially even his brother or an exhibition bout um, with Floyd Mayweather. I think I think would be a strong possibility. Like Nate's a big pay per view seller. Mayweather's a big pay per view seller. I'm sure he'll make more money from that than he has in his entire UFC career. Like that's
Yeah.
that's just the facts. Had McGregor fought Mayweather um, without having to give the UFC a slice of the pie, um, I doubt we would have ever seen McGregor fight ever again.
Yeah.
That's just how much money he would have walked away.
Yeah, you make a good point right there. Nate Diaz, he's walking away with no strings attached. You know what I mean? Whatever money he makes, it's his money. You know what I mean? It's his team's money. It's his yeah, it's like there's nobody taking a slice. And you said it, like Mayweather, he'll fight anybody in an exhibition match, right? And he's gonna fight in Japan. He's fighting one of the Asakura brothers, who's a mixed martial artist, but they're gonna go box in an exhibition in Japan.
Yeah,
Which
yeah. Like Floyd is still competing, and
yeah,
I'm sure Floyd is a guy that's very comfortable taking a fight like that, regardless of age. He's still Floyd Mayweather. He's still undefeated. He carries all of like the world's best resume. Um, I would watch it. I would watch it. That's a fight that intrigues me, and that's a fight that doesn't necessarily like because Nate's already come out and said, right? He's been asked about Jake Paul, and he said that's silly. I wouldn't like disrespect my skills like that. I feel like it's a tough fight. I feel like the kid can actually box, and I feel like Anderson Silva's going to have the advantage in that. But he's a legitimate boxer, and in terms of like size, he is way bigger than Nate Diaz, like way bigger. And I would say that Floyd Mayweather is closer in size to Nate Diaz than Jake Paul is to Nate Diaz.
damn. Because when you think of Mayweather, you don't really think of. I think what is he like 150 pounds or something like that, maybe at the
Yeah, well,
heaviest.
he fought Canelo at 150, 155. I think he
Yeah,
fought Canelo. Like he moved up. Like he comfortably. I believe he weighed in under that though when
yeah,
he actually fought. Yeah, well, he weighed in because they like boxing, they weigh the fighters on fight day as well, which is something I feel like the UFC should do as well. They weigh the fighters at their weigh-in, and then they weigh the fighters on fight day. And Floyd Mayweather I believe, for that Canelo fight, like weighed in at around 155, and then he was actually lighter on fight day than he was at the weigh-in, which is unheard of in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, yeah, that is definitely unheard of, man. I to me, I think what's gonna happen is there's gonna be a long negotiation period. I think the UFC is gonna try to negotiate with Nate Diaz to bring him back. I think they're gonna try everything that they can to bring him back for at least 3 fights, or make some kind of special contract for Nate Diaz. I don't know. I think they need to hold on.
By him, yeah, but by him fighting out of his like, this is the purpose of it, right? Like, maybe
Mhm.
Nate doesn't even intend to fight elsewhere, but his current contract, him fighting out that contract, leaving on a win, leaving as a huge pay-per-view star, um, now gives, like, he tests free agency, right? He tests free agency, and he now, like, has the ability to show other UFC fighters where they stand in an open market, which is incredibly dangerous for the UFC. Like, if he goes out and he's like, PFL drops millions of dollars to sign him, or Ryzen drops millions of dollars to sign him, or he goes away and fights uh, Floyd Mayweather and gets $10 million, it's really going to open a lot of other UFC fighters' eyes. So I really can see the UFC doubling, tripling, quadrupling whatever contract he was on, just so that doesn't happen, just so fighters aren't as aware of their ability, because it hasn't really been done with a guy like that in Nate Diaz's position. It's usually when guys are, like, going out on, like, a huge low. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're like multiple losses, lose, break their leg, then fight
Yeah.
somewhere else. So
Yeah.
it's very difficult for a fighter at the pinnacle of the UFC to test free agency. It's effectively unheard of.